one, go.
Good morning and welcome everybody to another episode of the Morning Brief with Jimmy Song and Tone Vase on this Saturday, December 30, where we're gonna wrap up the year because I think tomorrow Jimmy's gonna take off. So it's the last show for this year and we make it another positive one. We're gonna try at least. First, the good news is that the guy who got kidnapped in Ukraine, we talked about that yesterday, he was released, but he had to pay 1 million in Bitcoin. And since Tone is our Ukraine expert, why don't you tell us your opinion on that?
Yeah, I've been to Ukraine about 3 to 4 times in the last year and a half or so. And I probably shouldn't say this publicly, but this morning I actually committed to doing another event in Ukraine in a couple of months, actually. So maybe I should look into hiring some bodyguards as I land in the Kiev airport. But yeah, it's unfortunate, but here's the thing, right? Like my view on it is that whatever Bitcoin was paid, that Bitcoin, like all of the exchanges need to be immediately notified that which addresses that Bitcoin came from. And those Bitcoin need to be watched. I mean, this is one of those situations where, yeah, Bitcoin is an anonymous currency, but this is a little bit of a problem. And then all of these other exchanges need to keep an eye on these Bitcoins and how they're moving and where they're moving. Like, this is the difference between using Bitcoin for actual criminal activity versus using Bitcoin for voluntary transactions. This is not something I would call a voluntary transactions where both parties, walk away happy. And all the exchanges should really be on board with this because this could have been anybody's, any exchange's CEO that got kidnapped. So I don't know how movable these coins are going to be because you can't really, you can try to tumble the Bitcoins, but even that could be, could be followed. So it's one of those situations where, libertarians and anarchists need to really think about how much anonymity do you want in these transactions and how this needs to be handled. So my guess is those Bitcoins are going to be held on to for 10 to 15 years until, the statute of limitations kind of slowly gets forgotten and goes away, and then you can move them without people noticing. That's kind of my view on it.
Do you think there is a way to set up a system where Bitcoins used for criminal activity can be traced?
I don't think, see, here's the thing, right? My view on it is that technologically there shouldn't be, right? And the reason there shouldn't be technologically is because it's going to be abused by the governments to track every single penny we spend. But law enforcement needs to simply start doing police work again and not depend on technology to do it for them. So they need to, stop wasting their time on policing voluntary transactions, stop wasting their time with, drugs, stop wasting their time with prostitution, stop wasting their time with money laundering. And what they need to focus on is actual criminal activity like kidnappings and, robberies and theft and murder. And when something like this happens, you would have plenty of resources like police resources, FBI resources in order to track down these people either after the fact or, whatever, during the event, as long as your police resources aren't being wasted, hunting down a guy with 2 joints.
So Tone says law enforcement needs to prioritize. What do you think, Jimmy?
Well, I don't think there should be any sort of trackability, actually. I think I agree with Tone that law enforcement should actually go and do some investigating on their own instead of, looking to have some centralized party do it for them, which is more or less what they do with sort of financial crimes these days. With respect to this, if you make Bitcoin trackable, what they're going to demand is Monero or some other coin that's less trackable. So I don't think that's a solution at all. So technologically, I don't think there should be a way to track it very easily. And I mean, people do the same thing with cash all the time, right? Like this is how kidnappers normally, demand money is, okay, put the cash at this place. Once we get it safely, we'll release those people. And obviously, they can like mark the cash or something, but it doesn't really matter because the criminals will have their money.
So a slight big difference there, Jimmy, right? Because with cash, like another person has to physically pick it up and another person has to physically deliver it to another person. With Bitcoin, you can be on the other side of the world taking that payment. So getting payment for a kidnapping has become easier with Bitcoin.
Yeah, of course, but it's also getting payment, like on a lot of other things has become easier. I mean, like just because I don't think you should blame Bitcoin for this. It's just evil people doing evil things, and that's that will always happen in any free society. Is that evil people will figure out a way to take advantage of good technology, and that's what they did here.
Right, and the other thing is that this is a chance for law enforcement and governments to really show do they care about citizens? Do they care about people's lives and their health, or do they care about demonizing Bitcoin? Right, because if governments do nothing in these incidents, then there'll be more kidnappings, and then there'll be more ransoms, and those ransoms might need to be paid. Like if the law enforcement don't want to do anything just to make Bitcoin look worse, then that's bad, right?
I think the markets will sort this sort of stuff out. If you have more kidnappings, less people are going to travel there, and that country will have less business in general. If you have less kidnappings, more people will go there. I mean, it only takes like one billionaire getting kidnapped for a ton of Congress people to all of a sudden be more interested in protecting people on kidnappings and things like that, and making sure, security is good and all that. It doesn't take much.
That's a really good point. I mean, Ukraine looks really bad here, and if it happens again,
who the hell's going to travel to Ukraine now, except you?
Clearly I am.
But I mean, this might be a one-off, but you have 5 of these, and it's going to, no one's going to go there, right? Like. You have 5 of these with like prominent people. I guarantee you, no one's going to want to go there. So, this is kind of what happens in this sort of story, I guess.
So, just to be clear, Bitcoin billionaires are not going to count. So you have to still be careful, Tone. Okay? Because the senators don't care about those, except for when it comes to paying tax. So, next story is a bit of a technical one, I guess. Where Jimmy said that there was a block mined and there was no fee and no block reward. Why do you think this is significant, Jimmy?
Well, I mean, the miner gave up 12.5 Bitcoins because they didn't configure their software, or they did something wrong. But yeah, it's kind of weird because they tried to make this. Well, I mean, I guess maybe they found this block and it's a valid block, but they forgot that it had like a non-standard bad output. So, I mean, I don't know which miner this is, but it's I don't know if this would show which miner it is, but it's literally just one transaction, and it was a block that didn't take any of the awards. So good news for us in the sense that Bitcoin, like a little more Bitcoin is taken out of circulation and can never be spent. And your Bitcoins are worth a little bit more, but more or less this miner kind of screwed themselves.
Wait a second, Jimmy, can you clarify? Like those Bitcoins, the block reward is lost?
Well, so the miner has the option of taking less than the full block award. So you could take up to 12.5, and every miner more or less takes the maximum, and it's a little bit more than 12.5 if you include fees. This miner put a 0 there, so that's a valid block, and that's perfectly valid, and people have built on top of it, so it's in there for all time. But the miner didn't get any award for it. So
no new Bitcoin created.
Yeah, and that Bitcoin is gone forever. It's the 12.5 that the miner could have mined. They can't mine it anymore.
Tone.
That's a little weird. Like,
I think it's an incompetent developer somewhere that made a mistake and they didn't test it on testnet or something. But
no, but the parameter seems weird, right? Like, why would you? Why is that even an option? Why is it an option to take less than the maximum reward?
Because it's a valid block. You don't have to. Back in the day when it was like 50 Bitcoins, and fees were very, very tiny. A lot of miners just didn't want to do the calculating, so they just put a static 50 instead of 50 plus whatever the fee was. So that's how it was for a long time. Nowadays, mining software is a lot more sophisticated and it will calculate everything for you. But it must be a new miner or something, and there's only one transaction with a zero output.
Maybe it's Bitcoin.com. They've given up mining rewards before.
Yeah, there's who knows. The fact that this came through is very.
I can only hope.
Yeah.
Okay, next story is the most important one. Many of us, including probably our viewers, are wondering why a certain cryptocurrency, which is called Ripple and nobody uses, is suddenly worth billions or pretends to be worth billions, because there's always a problem with extrapolating a couple of transactions at a certain price for the whole supply. But we have our friend Vortex on Twitter pointing out that the people who are wondering should watch Tone's video on it with Peter Todd. And then Simon Dixon said, and he's pretty well connected, he knows a lot about crypto. He says, I don't know anybody who uses Ripple. Tone, why don't you tell us about what's going on here?
I don't know. Ripple is just. I cringe when people call it a cryptocurrency, right? There's nothing cryptocurrency about Ripple. It's literally a token that a company just printed 100 billion of. What you want to look at here is that total supply. Yeah. So Jimmy, so you see that total supply? Well, that's max supply. There's also total supply. I don't know why they're different.
And the owners, the creators, there's like 5 people, they own most of that, right?
Yeah. And it's a huge controversy. Like the creator of this, Ripple's been around like before Bitcoin, like Ripple, the company. And then Jeb McCaleb shows up there, the guy that created Mt. Gox and then scammed Karpellis in the way Karpellis bought it. Karpellis probably went to jail for him. That's my speculation, because Karpellis got scammed in buying Mt. Gox from Jeb McCaleb with missing Bitcoin there. And then McCaleb shows up at Ripple, convinces them to create this useless token that has nothing to do with anything, completely unneeded by the banks. They make this token. It was worth fractions of a penny because there's 100 billion of these things, and people just pump it. People will just pump anything. This is the environment that we're in. So Jimmy, if you do me a favor, if you click on the top, the currency market cap, just to show them all.
Market cap,
all of them, right? But what you want to do from here is you want to click down on the coins button. And then click on total supply. Right, like that's the real. Those are your real. Where's Bitcoin?
Bitcoin is second.
There it is. Bitcoin is second. Oh man, I gotta tweet this out. I totally missed it this morning. So Bitcoin is actually no longer the top cryptocurrency by market cap. It's now Ripple. It's right there. It's total supply, guys. It's not circulating supply, it's total supply, because unlike Bitcoin, the other, what do we got? We're still missing like 3 to 4 million Bitcoin is still to be mined. Ripple is all there. Like it's all there. Like these guys are just sitting on all that Ripple. So some guy can come out like tomorrow and sell $200 billion worth of Ripple because one guy is sitting on it. This is how ridiculous this thing is.
Can you explain a bit more on how the extrapolation of the market cap doesn't chime in with the actual trading volume, and definitely not the usability with Ripple. I mean, what's the trading volume?
I don't know what the usability of Ripple is. I mean, Ripple is a useless token, right? I mean, they're like, oh, banks will need Ripple to move stuff from each other. Banks are trusted entities with each other. This is totally centralized. Banks don't need Ripple. All banks need is a database connecting them to another bank. So when one bank, sells $1 million for 1.2 million euros, one bank adjusts, the numbers in their database. I mean, Ripple is completely unnecessary in this equation. This is what me and Peter Todd tried to explain in a video over a year ago. Jimmy's pulling that up now. I'm disappointed at myself here that I haven't done more crypto scam episodes. I think when did this one come out? This is over a year old, my best guess, or about
February 16th. Yeah,
exactly. It's exactly 1 year, almost a year old, 10 months ago, where me and Peter Todd try to explain basically the stupidity of Ripple. And how it makes just absolutely no sense whatsoever. And Peter Todd had to do a paper on Ripple in order to, I think he was commissioned by R3, and R3 is another project that I thought was insane, but at least R3 never had a token. So then R3 considered having a token, and they considered Ripple, and Peter Todd was sent in to, as a consultant, hey, should R3 utilize Ripple? And then Peter Todd came back, God, no. And he had a whole paper about it. Then what happened was apparently R3 had a deal to buy a bunch of Ripple tokens. Then they walked away from the deal. And then Ripple tried to sue R3 that R3 promised to buy 5 billion Ripple tokens from Ripple.
I thought it was the other way around. They had the option, but Ripple walked away. And basically R3 sued Ripple because they would have gotten like a $3 billion worth of Ripple.
Oh, really? For some reason I thought it was the other way. The whole thing is just dumb. But anyway, hey, well.
Okay. So I noticed in the chat there's some people who own some Ripple, and on Twitter certainly we've seen some people who own it and support it. So if you actually, one of you guys, if you actually know a bank or anybody who uses Ripple for anything, please tweet at us and let us know, because we would definitely like to know. If you don't and nobody comes up with anything, maybe you can reconsider your position. Jimmy, why does Tone say that there's nothing cryptographic about it? I thought it doesn't have it's certainly not a blockchain, but it doesn't have any cryptographic elements.
It does have cryptographic elements. But it's not really like. It wasn't meant to be used as a currency. It was ripples are supposed to be utilized to send send other assets over the Ripple network to another entity or something like that. That obviously never really got off the ground. They're very good at making press releases saying we have a partnership with X, Y, or Z, but nobody's actually seen it really working in the wild, or banks actually using it to transfer dollars to another bank or something like that. It's supposed to be like a replacement for Swift or ACH or whatever. And Ripple, the actual token is supposed to be to transfer it over. So it's not really a currency per se. It's more akin to like gas on Ethereum or something like that. You're supposed to utilize it to, pay the network somehow, and really, why do you need a currency to do that when whatever asset you're using, you can just pay some amount to, or you can use dollars or Bitcoin or something else that already existed. This whole thing is just kind of speaks to the unit bias that people have. They see something that's like 13 cents and they go, oh, well, now I can own lots and lots of it instead of just like, 0.3 Bitcoin. I can have like 5,000 Ripple or whatever it is. And that's, I think, the mentality that has caused this price rise. People are just focused on the numerator and not really the denominator. And even the denominator is deceiving because according to CoinMarketCap, the denominator is just the circulating supply, which is 38 billion. 38.7 billion. But the actual denominator is more like 100 billion, which is the real supply. I think the difference between the max supply and the total supply actually is that they may burn some ripples whenever you do some transfer or gateway transfer or something like that. And I think it's like 300 ripples or something. So the fact that only like 6 million ripples have been used tells you that there haven't been that many transactions on the Ripple network like ever. So it's not really useful. It's just people, succumbing to unit bias. And, who knows? This might pump for a while longer. I don't see the value in it. I've told people this in the past. There's a central entity that controls most of the Ripple. And they, I think, release like 25 basis points per week or day or month or something. So and they make tons of money off of all the people that are buying this stuff. 25 basis points is a lot of money right now. And right now their market cap, which is calculated based on the circulating supply, is $92 billion. Based on the total supply, they have like at least nominally like hundreds of billions of dollars in their bank account, like just sitting there. I can't see how this lasts. And Ripple's done this before, where it'll sort of pump, and people think, oh, okay, well there's 100 billion of it, and I can own like a lot of it or whatever. They don't really think about the denominator. They're just thinking about the numerator, and oh, it's such a nice small number. It has lots of room to grow. This is why I think moving to bits would be really, really useful.
Yeah, we might have to do that. And right, and nothing is stopping them. Like, well, the reason I say it's not a cryptocurrency, it's not mineable. Like, none of these parameters in Ripple, the consensus is like 2 people. Right?
Yeah. So they can roll back transactions if they want to.
They can do anything they like. They can print another 100 billion Ripple tomorrow if they wanted to. Right? There is absolutely nothing. They are holding it together other than a couple of people. And the thing is, and the whole idea of the Ripple token came into existence by a known scammer, and then he tried to cash out a bunch of Ripple, and he got into a big argument with other people of Ripple. So what did he do? He went and forked Ripple and created Stellar. Yeah. I mean, this is what we have. Stellar is just a copy of Ripple, and that one is probably going to pump as well.
It has been pumping. It's, I think, at like 40 cents or something. It was like less than 2 cents a few months ago. So.
Right. And none of these things have absolutely any value to the economic system. They're totally useless.
Yeah, so a lot of people are saying, well, Bitcoin's slow, Ripple's instant. Yeah, it's instant because it's centralized, right? Like, if I could make a centralized website tomorrow and make it possible for you to send whatever, like, instantaneously. The reason why it's fast is because it's centralized. There's a central entity that can control whatever, whether your transaction goes through or not, or they can do whatever they want, basically. And if that's what you want, I say go use U.S. dollars or something. I mean,
Jimmy. So I did get a comment in my chat. So one person said, I know 2 banks in India and one in Dubai, one in Abu Dhabi, and it says that use Ripple for remittance for the past 4 to 6 months. They do 2 to 3 million USD a day. So basically, it's just, a couple of people that they know, and they're just like sending Ripple to each other because no one else uses Ripple, right? I mean,
you're supposed to use Ripple as a gate, you're supposed to be able to send dollars on Ripple, and you have to spend Ripple in order to like transfer it back and forth. Although, like, with the price as high as it is, I think the minimum, at least way back when I looked at it, it was like 300 Ripple per transaction, which is like $600. So you think Bitcoin fees are high, try paying $600 to do a transaction. I don't know, maybe they lowered it, but it doesn't make any sense. It's just the higher the price goes, the higher the transaction fees are. I just don't understand. Well, I mean, I do understand. It's people like just looking to speculate, nothing else.
Right.
Okay, so everybody watched that video with Tone Bayes and Peter Todd. I watched it. I think it's very good. And try to
Oh yeah,
answer
and those just a plug for those T-shirts were made by Brave the World, Julia Turiansky. So yeah, so we shot the video at her place, and we were supporting her work by wearing her T-shirts.
Yeah, so we'll see what's going to happen with Ripple. What is going to happen with Bitcoin, Tone?
Well.
Oh wait, sorry, Jimmy wanted to talk about the.
Well, I mean, I just wanted to show that the mempool's pretty large right now, and you can see that the transaction count is actually like not that dissimilar than like a week ago when the fees were super high. But you know, there's like sort of strata of lower fee transactions. So you know, like if you were yellow back here, yellow I think is 50 to 70. You were really down on the pecking order. You're now relatively high in the mempool. So it's interesting because the actual transaction fees on the network were much higher before, and you know. Something to watch.
We are always watching the price. So what about the price, Tone?
All right, let me grab screen share over here, and all right. So I don't know. I still like looking at trade block for my mempool stuff, and 13 megabytes. I think they remove zero fee transactions, which is why their numbers are so much smaller.
Well, I mean, I think their mempool is much smaller. Like the cap on their mempool is much smaller. When you look at the site that I showed you, the cap on there is like 200 megabytes. So it shows all 200 megabytes worth of transactions. There's a lot more transactions sort of floating around than the 13 that they're showing here.
Oh, I gotcha. Because I tend to use trade blocks, Satoshi per byte, and I try to go just above that, and it seems to work for me in order to get my transactions in at a reasonable time.
Yeah,
I don't know.
So that's a good way to sort of practically use it. But as far as the entire mempool, there's way more than that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, and I've seen this thing at like 50, right? So it's we're not as bad as it was before. It seems to be doing somewhat okay. All right, let's get to the price. By the way, guys, I'm sure some of you noticed that yesterday I was in Colombia. Today I'm back in New York. So hello from New York. We'll see where I do the show from tomorrow. But yeah, so tomorrow we don't do the morning show. I'll do my lengthy price show tomorrow, probably late in the afternoon, like 3-4 o'clock. I'll try and get you the full-blown trading Bitcoin show here on my channel. So here's the weekly chart, and man, it's I mean, we're still on a green 4, but it's not looking good. But we're not breaking the lows yet. So while it still looks a little bit scary, it's really not the end of the world yet. Let's see where it goes. The weekly chart is just not very helpful at the moment. Let's take a look at the daily. The daily is the one that's been way more interesting. So we're now at the bottom of this triangle. I guess I can adjust it a little bit. And if we don't pull back up, like immediately from here, from 12,000, it might get ugly, right? Because now we're approaching the swing low. The swing low was at 11,000, and I'm looking at Bitfinex at the moment. So adjust for your exchange accordingly. This is bad because we're now closing below the 50-day moving average. We're closing at a new closing low that we haven't had since, well, early December. Doesn't seem too far away, but it's not great. And we're still on a 1, so there hasn't been any. There hasn't really been any. What word am I looking for here? There hasn't been any, like, indication to go short. All right, sorry guys, I landed early this morning, so I'm probably should catch up on sleep. But we haven't like I need one more day. Like if tomorrow is trading below today's low, then there is definitely a shorting opportunity in Bitcoin. Now, how low can it go? Well, we haven't had a daily 9 in a long time. I really wanted this candle to show up 3 days ago, right? I really wanted this candle to come in as a 9. We got to a 7. We never made it to a 9. So in a way, that's not very good because a 9 allows you a good buy-in opportunity, and we never got to that 9. So now if we start another leg down, we could be looking at 8 more days of downside. Are these days going to be tiny little days like this day number 2 was, or are these days going to be all like today's candle? Nobody knows, right? But we're at the bottom of the chart.
Aren't we on the hourly? You keep saying days.
Yeah, this is the daily.
Oh, this isn't the hourly? It's a
no.
Oh,
this
okay,
is this is the daily chart.
I need more sleep too.
No, this is the daily chart. It's been a bad day, man. We started this day up above for like around 14,300. We're now at 12,000, and the day is only what, like 10 hours in. So 12 hours in. So we're only half a day in. So this day could end in a monster move back to the upside, or it could like double this whole thing. Like nobody knows. I like to see my end of day candles close. So right now, my no trade zone has already been violated, right? I sent out a tweet calling for a no trade zone around 12,800, between 12,800 and 1,500. So right now, you're basically in this fear zone. And if we go, down below 11,000, you end up in this crash zone where people are just going to massively exit. And then you have this capitulation where a bottom could be found. Now, where's a reasonable bottom? I honestly think it's 7,500. Because remember, 7,500 is where I called the top earlier this year because that's what it was all pointing to. And then we went higher. So 1,700 is still the perfect area to backtest because that was a significant high. And then we broke from 7,000 all the way to 20. So in a way, I would love to see 7,500 backtested and then rebound with a strong fashion back to 20,000. Let's go to the 4-hour. Now, this is, again, not very good. The 4-hour gave you a 9, wasn't great on a sell signal. It bounced right off of this automatically generated line from the indicator. We went down, hit a 9, went up for a 1 to 4 candle dead cat bounce, and now we're going down. So the 4-hour is on candle number 7 of 9, but it's going below this automatically generated line and this automatically generated line. So that's actually bad. This means that when the 4-hour hits this 9, is a much higher probability that this 9 is more of the beginning of a downtrend than the ending of one. So let's see if we get a little bit of relief in about, 10 hours from now on the 4-hour. And then we can continue. Then we'll most likely will have a little bit more downside. The hourly chart is also about to come up on a 9. We're on 7. We're making new lows. I have to be bearish here, right? I mean, the moment we entered the fear zone from, I don't really have. Maybe I'll pull up a picture in a second from my tweet. Oh wait, let me go to my Twitter. It's right there. Profile. I tweeted it yesterday. Let's see here. Here it is. Yeah, people are making fun of me because I was typing really fast and I typed the A ahead of the R, so that's actually kind of funny. I think it's starting to catch on. Could be another hodl. Maybe I'll get into the history books here with a new way of spelling crash. But this was my no trade zone, and we're now below it. And boom, this is your fear zone, and then you end up in a crash zone, like right below the slow. And then what am I looking for? I'm looking for the back test of 7,500. That would be my target. But again, time is going to make a difference. And if those of you are wondering, like people were making fun of the random number generator, and then I'm like, hey, let's take a look at Ripple. People saying it didn't work on Ripple, and here's the weekly chart on Ripple, and boom, there's your 9, and there's this stupid bounce to the upside. Hopefully, it won't last too much longer, and people will come into reality here. But yeah, here's the hourly chart. So in about 2 hours, there could be, try to buy that dip, but the 4-hour will still be bearish, and the daily hasn't even turned bearish yet. If it does, that could be, a repeat of this. Hold on, let me move this down. Could be a repeat of this, right? I mean, that's what happened the last time the 2 started trading below the 1. Plenty of profits to be made on the short side, though I never ever recommend shorting Bitcoin. I mean, this thing can reverse and go up in a blink of an eye. That's pretty much it for me. I don't really have anything else, guys. Let me stop screen share.
All right.
Valentin, you're on mute.
So some sobering news from Tone Vase for the end of the year. Let's hope the new year is going to start off better. Thank you, everybody, for watching and supporting us. And Happy New Year to everybody. And we'll see you back January 1.
All right. And this song is done.
Bye, guys.
Hey, wait.